day's a day, a bad luck's always a coming my way.
Halloween night. Well, to be more specific, Devil's Night, October 30th, 1938. Orson Welles unleashes a Halloween special, a Halloween radio show on the world known as War of the Worlds. Basically, it was a radio show about Martians coming down and attacking a small community. And the way that he did it, the way that he told this classic tale written by H.G. Wells, is he made it like an actual news broadcast. And here's the thing, you may have heard this. Supposedly, it caused such a panic. People were freaking out. People were losing their minds, thinking that Martians were really coming down and attacking human beings.
50 years ago this Sunday night, Martians invaded Earth. It wasn't real, only a drama on CBS radio. But to many of the 6 million people listening, it sounded very real and frightening. They heard a ballroom music program interrupted by a news bulletin of a Martian landing in New Jersey. Many didn't hear the disclaimers that it was just some Halloween fun. It was the night before Halloween, 1938, 8 p.m. 23-year-old Orson Welles and his Mercury Theater presented a radio play based on H.G. Wells' novel, The War of the Worlds. John Houseman was the co-producer.
Within 10 minutes, I realized that the switchboards were deluged with complaints, calls, and that hell had broken loose.
Historians believe more than 1 million people took the broadcast literally.
We thought the world was coming to an end because of the Martians.
People were running and screaming and knocking on doors.
They were all excited, and one was saying to another, "Is this the end of the world?"
In the radio broadcast, the name of the town that the Martians invade when they come down to Earth to attack people is a place known as Grover's Mill, New Jersey. Now here's the thing, Grover's Mill is a real place. It's an unincorporated community in a town known as West Windsor, New Jersey. Now if you were to come here to Grover's Mill, New Jersey, there's a few different things scattered throughout the town that you can go and visit and experience Orson Welles' War of the Worlds, like this plaque, this amazing plaque in a park, the local park that's behind me. Typically, I don't like reading historic plaques. Usually I tell you guys to just kind of pause it and then come back to us whenever you're ready, but I have to read this to you. Now, of course, what you're looking at right now is a picture of a family listening to War of the Worlds, and look at the look of terror on their faces. Like, I'm so excited. On the evening of October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater presented a dramatization of H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. This was to become a landmark in broadcast history, provoking continuing thought about media responsibility, social psychology, and civil defense. For a brief time, as many as 1 million people throughout the country believed that Martians had invaded the Earth, beginning with Grover's Mill, New Jersey, right where we are standing. And this guy up here below the UFO with all the tentacles, that's Orson Welles.
Yeah, it's a really good likeness, actually. He did most of the narration and some of the character voices. I snuck a little ahead to see the pond, and there's a couple more of these plaques that talk about the broadcast, and we better try to visit them quickly. It's starting to rain. And to me, it feels like it may have done that very night in October. Cold, dreary, and starting to rain. So I'm very excited. Let's check this out.
The first plaque that we come to says War of the Worlds Broadcast. I have to say it like that. War of the Worlds Broadcast. In 1938, there were no televisions or cell phones. People gathered around the radios for news and entertainment. America was just coming out of the Great Depression, and Adolf Hitler had recently ascended into power in Germany. A threat of another world war had Americans on edge. Now you can go ahead and read the rest. Pause it, and then come back when you're ready.
I think if I had tuned into this story while it was going on and had missed the initial warnings, I think I definitely would have been scared. Would you have been scared?
Oh yeah, especially like back then in the political climate or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I would have been terrified. Now, an interesting thing about this, the more you find, the more research you do on the broadcast itself, most Americans that night, Devil's Night, October 30th, a lot of people were listening to another more popular radio broadcast that came on right before Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. It's theorized, it's believed that most people were listening to that one, and whenever it ended and they tuned over to War of the Worlds, more than likely they missed Orson Welles at the very beginning saying, "Don't worry, don't panic. This is a play, it's all a work of fiction."
Can you imagine tuning in to a radio station and the moment you catch is the news reporter part, and you didn't catch any of the other story, you just got the now breaking news. Something's going down. We're being invaded.
In a field east of the village of Grover's Mill.
A lot of people were scared. Some people were curious, but supposedly old Doc, he came out with a shotgun over there. They taking pictures of him on that porch. He was going to shoot the Martians.
He loaded us up in a car. We're going to get the hell out of there. I mean, we knew Grover's Mill very well, and the Martians are there. We obviously did not want to be there any longer.
One of the local farmers pulled all his kids out of the house, put them in the car, and pulled up to the gas tank, started putting gas in it, got in the car and took off and forgot to take the hose out and tore it right out of the ground.
More than 1 million people feared they had something to fear and fled their homes. In Pittsburgh, a woman tried to commit suicide, saying she preferred poison to Martian death rays. In Indianapolis, a woman screamed out in church, "It's the end of the world." In Rhode Island, callers urged the electric company to black out their city from the Martians.
This one here says the October 30th broadcast. And Jessica just pointed out that picture right there, that's Orson Welles, a very young Orson Welles, doing the actual broadcast. It's the same photo that they have on the plaque that we showed earlier. Now, feel free to pause this and pick up right where you left off, so that way you don't have to listen to us read it. Are you back? Hopefully you're back. We're still here, but it pretty much talks about everything that we just talked about. Here's another plaque facing the lake. It says quotes from the broadcast. Feel free to pause again, once again. You can call me lazy, I don't care. And read the quotes, and then press play whenever you're ready. There's that lake Jessica was talking about. And once again, she has run ahead. You are a little adventurer. What's this last plaque talk about?
This is about the international reactions that people had. And I have to read one of my favorites that a woman in Indianapolis had. She ran into a church screaming, "New York has been destroyed. It's the end of the world. You might as well go home to die. I just heard it on the radio."
Once again, feel free to pause the screen and read what Jessica just talked about, and a whole bunch more will be right here when you return. Have they returned yet? I don't know, but check this out. Legend has it that locally, some residents opened fire on a water tower thinking it was a Martian. Let that be a little bit of foreshadowing for what we're going to show you guys very soon.
Others took aim at this water tower, which was looming in the darkness.
It was kind of foggy that night, and when you come into town, it looked like a spaceship, and so the ones that had guns, they were shooting at it.
There was a bit of an outcry, as you can imagine. The companies who put on the show were like, hey, we kept reminding people this was all just a story, and so they were not punished at all, but did promise that they would not use the "we interrupt this program" ever again in fictional telling, and I believe it stands till today.
When it was all over, Orson Welles and CBS apologized. The government imposed regulations to ensure that such a hoax can never happen again in this country. It did happen again, 11 years later in Quito, Ecuador. The broadcast was so realistic that listeners were outraged when they realized that it was only a dramatization. They demonstrated, stormed the radio station, and set it on fire, killing 15 people inside.
There's even a photo that supposedly shows Orson Welles reassuring reporters that he did not intend to cause a panic. Now here's the thing. There's really no evidence, no concrete evidence that a panic actually took place aside from newspapers. And depending on who you talk to, depending on where you do your research, some people even say that it was the newspapers who created a panic, a fake panic.
The day after.
The day after.
With their sensational headlines.
Because they were a little tiffed that the radio was getting all the attention and not them. In fact, I think the only piece of evidence that there was any kind of panic, the sheriff's department here got a few calls saying, hey, is this true? No, it's not true. Oh, I thought so. But then some people went and shot up the water tower thinking it was a Martian.
I've had almost no sleep, and I know less about this than you do. I haven't read the papers.
With contrition, the only sensible card to play, CBS executives hastily convened a press conference.
Of course, we are deeply shocked and deeply regretful about the results of last night's broadcast.
The press conference was one of Welles' great performances as an actor.
We gotta go find the water tower now. Let's go hunt some Martians. I shouldn't say that. Let's go look for some Martians at Grover's Mill, New Jersey. See this giant red barn that's behind me? This is where the story took place. October 30th, 1938, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds. The Martians landed here. I just try to picture it. Just imagine these giant Martian-like creatures, larger than life, taller than the trees, coming down over top of this building. Man, it's really cool to be standing here. I mean, this is history. This is radio history. Grover's Mill. And then right over here, just like the story, let's see if you can see it before I point it out. Right about the center of your screen, there's this giant cone-like structure. That's the water tower that the townspeople were shooting at. It's real, it's right there. Then right over here is the farmhouse. Now we're gonna get on the other side of the street and I'm gonna show it to you a little bit better. But this is just pretty wild standing right here and seeing this. Here's a slightly less obstructed view of the water tower. Let me zoom in a little bit. I could see in the dead of night, in a panic, after hearing about Martians landing and incinerating people, I can see looking up at the dead of night and seeing that and going, you know what? That's a Martian, let's shoot it. Here's a shot of the other side of the farmhouse where the story takes place. Hey, today it's right next to a busy road. What it was like back then, I don't know. But again, if you look very closely right there, you can see the water tower, the Martian water tower. Man, how freaking cool. I wonder if this town gets a lot of visitors, a lot of tourists around Halloween. Well, maybe not in today's day and age, but back then, I can see living in this area and coming out here, and it's like a Halloween tradition. Not too far from everything else, on the corner of Scott Avenue and Alexander Road, you'll find this piece of art. Basically, the 80th anniversary of the broadcast, an artist gifted this to the town. This is, well, basically, it's a mothership from War of the Worlds made out of recycled material. That's what it looks like, what it was described as in the radio broadcast. I love that it's just overlooking an intersection, residential neighborhood, waiting to incinerate people. I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually pretty impressed with the amount of War of the Worlds memorabilia and history that are here in this town to this day. Not many places do things like this. Typically, Jessica and I are not coffee drinkers. We'll do some hot chocolate, but it's actually pretty cold here in New Jersey. And Grover's Mill Coffee Shop is a War of the Worlds themed coffee shop. I have to get something. I took a peek inside. You gotta see this. I know. I keep saying how freaking cool, but seriously, how freaking cool. The War of the Worlds, Orson Welles. With that being said, thank you for joining us on another Grimm adventure. This time, Halloween. Well, Devil's Night, 1938. Orson Welles, War of the Worlds. Till next time, happy Halloween.
Wherever I come, bad luck is coming my way. Wherever I go, hard luck is there to stay. Good luck never stays a day. A bad luck's always coming my way.